Bill that Bellevue believes would have put their proposed racetrack casino off another 4 years failed to make it out of committee.
LB 311 would have pushed ahead a deadline from 2025 to 2029. It would have required a market study of horse racing and casinos in the state. It would determine what impact adding more casinos would have had on the 6 casinos already approved by state law.
John Chapman reports Bellevue believes it still has a chance to get into the state's gambling game.
Bellevue city officials believe Olde Towne Bellevue would have new life, with more traffic moving around and more people going into shops if his racetrack casino becomes reality. Bellevue Mayor Rusty Hike says the city won a round in the fight when LB 311 failed to make it out of committee.
Competition's a good thing, but I really don't think it belongs where the government can legislate that competition out. And I really think some of these bills are a way to legislate competition away.
We're going to be a racetrack with a casino, not a casino with a racetrack.
John Hassett and his partners are behind the Bellevue racetrack. They plan to build an open, modern design horse racing track that will seat 5,000, with standing room for 5,000 more. It will cost around $150 million in today's dollars to build and will feature big money races.
In the Bellevue market, we propose 24 race days and $5 million in purses, $200,000 a day, and we're planning to build a first-class quarter-horse racetrack.
Bellevue officials say a racetrack casino would anchor an entertainment district in the city. Mayor Hike says that entertainment district would feature an indoor-outdoor regional water park.
That in itself is an $80 to $100 million project that we're trying to tie together with the horse track casino into an entertainment district. Now, if we get this water park in place, we've got some other recreational companies that are looking at following. In Bellevue, we're looking at things that will lower our property taxes, raise our tax base, bring more entertainment dollars in, more employment in. So we're trying to do what's right for Bellevue and the entire state.
On your side in Bellevue, I'm John Chapman, 6 News.
Bellevue officials expect the issue to come up again next legislative session. Other communities, including North Platte, Ogallala, Kimball, and York, have indicated they would also like to build casinos in their communities.